to Jewish Women Talk About Midlife. Hi, I'm Devora Krasnianski, and I've been coaching women for a long time in all areas of life, including women in midlife. Midlife is an exciting time, but it's also confusing, and so I invite experts to join me here as we unpack this crazy and interesting time of our lives. You can join our conversations on our Facebook group, Jewish Women Talk About Midlife, and on our website, Jewish Midlife. A major issue for so many women in midlife is sleep. Some women have a hard time falling asleep. Others don't get a full night's sleep without getting up a few times. Sometimes there are practical solutions, like getting to bed at the right time for you or making the room more comfortable. Sometimes it can be all about offloading the stress of the day. And sometimes it's about addressing the stress, trauma, anxiety that is deep down in the subconscious. I recently spoke with Yocheved Levin, a sleep specialist, hypnotherapist, and NLP practitioner, all about sleep. If you ever have trouble getting a good night's sleep, and who hasn't, Yocheved shares so much about how to finally get that good sleep we need to repair and refresh. Hi, I'm Devora Krasnianski, and welcome to Jewish Women Talk About Midlife, where we talk about all things midlife. And I get lots of questions about different aspects of midlife, and I'd like to reach out to different people to talk about the different things. So I'm really grateful to you, Yocheved Levin, from London, England, for talking about this important topic. Sleep. I get a lot of questions about what's going on with my sleep. I used to be so exhausted and just be able to fall asleep. And now that I got to this age and stage, sleep is so much harder. And I'm so excited to be talking to you because this is what you do about sleep. So talk a little bit before we even get into the conversation, talk a little bit about what you do in the area of sleep and everything else that you do. So thank you, Yocheved.
Hi, Devora. Nice to meet you. Thank you for having me. Yes, sleep is such an important topic and it affects so many people, and especially midlife. We'll come to that later. Just a little bit introduction about yourself. As I said, I'm from London. I live in Manchester now. I am a hypnotherapist and NLP practitioner, which I help people specifically improve their sleep. A lot of times sleep issues come from anxiety, stress, trauma, lots of different things that is going on in the subconscious mind. By clearing the subconscious mind, helping the subconscious mind be so much more relaxed, then the sleep improves. There are obviously also practical tips, which we'll come into later on, which a person can do as well. And that's basically, in a nutshell, what I do. Obviously, there's a lot more to it, but it's working with your subconscious mind. Also, a lot of the work is with your emotional mind as well, because every experience that we have creates an emotion. When it's an unpleasant emotion, then your subconscious mind holds on to that emotion, and it kind of becomes a trigger for you. And your subconscious mind will tell you, hey, you know what, this is dangerous. You don't want to go down there. So it will store it in your brain. And what can happen is you can consciously forget about it and think, oh, that event is totally irrelevant, doesn't matter anymore. But it could be even years later, something completely different can happen that can trigger that same emotion. And as soon as that happens, your subconscious mind will start shouting to you, hey, 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 that's dangerous. You don't want to go there. And this is how it protects you by anxiety, panic attacks, a lot of times OCD, all other behaviors. It's really just your subconscious mind protecting you from what it perceives is a real danger. But it's not a real danger for you. It's an emotional, unpleasant situation. So what I do is really basically help clear those emotional triggers. Once those triggers are cleared, then it's like your subconscious mind is being freed and able to really help you how it should do. Does that make sense?
Well, you'll unpack it more, but generally it makes sense. And so we'll unpack.
Yeah, that's in a nutshell. Obviously, there's so much more. The mind is phenomenal.
Right. And the subconscious. I find that whole thing fascinating. And so I'm really excited to talk about it a little bit, but we're not going to go into the whole thing of that. But yeah, let's talk about sleep and let's go back a little bit and why sleep is so important, and not just to kind of just disregard it. Okay, so I'll just be tired, but it's so much more than that.
Absolutely. Sleep really is the foundation to, your core well-being, your health, how you feel. We all know, we've had the times we've gone to sleep late, woken up exhausted, and then the next day is just completely messed up, and it takes time to catch up those sleep. During sleep, your body is actually repairing. It's the time you just need that rest. It's the way we're created. It's the way Hashem made us. I also say it's actually a big bracha because, you can have, if you have a stressful day, And if you didn't have that night and you just carry on day after day after day, the stress continues and it's very hard to break that cycle. Whereas the day ends with or rather the night starts and then the morning. When we have a good night's sleep, it's also a time to like a break from what's been going on, time to unwind, which we'll get into later, offload and start fresh the next day. So it really is an incredible gift that we have. During sleep, our body is, our muscles are repairing, our brain is repairing and preparing us for the next day. It's kind of doing two things, releasing what has happened that day, helping us to unwind and relax, and also charging us up for the next day to face whatever it is that we're going through. So sleep is vital for the function of the brain, for the body, it also for cognitive, very for concentration, things like that. When you've had the right amount of sleep, then you feel so much better in every way.
Okay, so sleep is important, but nonetheless, some of us are not getting the amount of sleep, whether it's intentional, because we put too much into our day. And for some of us, we actually do kind of, try to go to sleep earlier or normal time, and it's not coming for us. Or we keep waking up throughout the night, which I think maybe is two different things. Not being able to fall asleep and waking up.
Absolutely, that's exactly what I was going to say. Like there's those who come to me for they just can't fall asleep, which I'll go into some tips for that. And then there's those who come because they have no problem falling asleep, but they'll wake up a few hours later and then they just find it hard to fall asleep. Now, particularly when during midlife, when you're going through, you pass the stage of having little children around, and it's the time when you feel, yes, now I can finally get some sleep. And a lot of times women feel that, no, suddenly when they're able to sleep, they can't sleep. A lot of times it also could be sometimes it's just your body has got so used to having less sleep, because when you're younger, you've just, your childbearing years, you've just been busy waking up early. So you've got into that pattern of having less sleep and your body's kind of got used to it. So there's also changes that happen in the body as well. Your hormones are changing as well. And as your hormones changes, it affects your sleep pattern. So your body is releasing less of the growth hormone, which therefore can result in like changes in the sleep. And also, as a lot of women know, night sweats, hot flushes, this can really be disturbing. So these are kind of some changes that are actually physical changes, chemical changes happening inside your brain and your body, which can affect sleep as well.
So you mentioned that our body got used to less sleep. Does that mean that the body got used to less sleep and can work with less sleep? Or really it should be going back to having the right amount of sleep, or whatever the right amount is? Yeah,
and that is a very good question. I always say the best indication is like, instead of actually measuring how many hours sleep you're getting, because if you focus, let's say I need to get 8 hours sleep, not everybody needs 8 hours. Some people need 8 hours, some people might need more. Then what happens also is you're kind of pressurized to, you've got to have the 8 hours, and then that can also hold you back from sleeping, that pressure. So instead, just look at, regardless of how many hours sleep you get, it's more the quality of the sleep. If you're waking up feeling refreshed and energized, then you've had enough sleep. For some people, that might be 6 hours. If you're waking up feeling refreshed, that's enough for you. So it's more, look at how you're waking up. If you're waking up tired, then obviously something is going on and you're not getting either the right quality or the right amount. Mm-hmm. So I would say that is a better way of calculating how much sleep you should get.
So all the idea of that you need 8 hours of sleep is generalized. It doesn't mean that I need 8 hours of sleep. I can need more or less, and that might change over the years.
Yes, absolutely. We need to have the general knowledge and understanding to be able to make it more specific and personal, but it's very much, my approach always is very, very unique and individual, specific to the person themselves, because we're not textbooks. Nobody is a textbook. Right. And there's so many different parts to a person, and it depends on what's going on in their life, depends on their emotional well-being and everything like that. So yes, go by yourself. 8 is a general rule, but then, like I said, go by how you're waking up. If you're waking up feeling refreshed, then you've had enough sleep.
Well, yes, and at the same time, if someone's waking up to a stressful day, from a stressful day into another stressful day, they may not feel refreshed only because of
Yes.
what's coming up.
Then that is different. Then there's obviously they have to learn techniques of how to release that stress, because if you're going to bed stressed, it is going to interfere with your sleep. In order to sleep, you've got to kind of switch off your mind. We have the subconscious mind and then we have the conscious mind. The conscious mind is that analytical side of the brain, the side that tries to make sense and reason of situations, analyzing, thinking things. The subconscious mind is the part that stores, it's kind of like the hard drive of the brain.
Mm-hmm.
So when we switch off the conscious mind and go into our subconscious mind, we're switching off that analytical part of us that is constantly thinking. However, with the subconscious mind, if there is a worry or something concerning you, your subconscious mind is trying to process it for you. So it cannot relax until that is dealt with. Therefore, it's very important to, if you have a worry or something that's concerning you, to be able to offload that and deal with that. Obviously, not everything can be dealt with on that day, but learning techniques of how to de-stress, how to be able to kind of push it to the side so that you're still able to get a good night's sleep. Because what happens is if when you're in that state and then you don't get a good night's sleep, it just increases that stress and makes the situation so much worse. When you're able to have a good night's sleep regardless, at least you've got that new energy to face it the next day.
Okay. So the idea is try to offload the whatever is going on for you if it's a stressful day. And even if it's a regular day, to kind of just shut down whatever happened in the day so that you can get your sleep, so that you can have another wonderful day coming up.
Exactly.
So,
As you say, it's regardless of whether you have stress or not, or specific challenges, it's so important every day to make time for yourself. When I say time for yourself, yes, do things that you enjoy, but also while you're doing those things, what you're actually doing is just relaxing your mind. When your mind is relaxed, you're releasing stress hormones from your body. When we're stressed, when we're anxious, we're increasing the cortisol in our body. And that kind of increases the stress because that is preparing you for a dangerous situation.
mm-hmm.
However, if we have too much cortisol in our body, then it actually can lead to physical illness and it prevents us from being our best selves. So taking time for yourself, I know there's so much talk out there about do something for yourself. This is why it's important, because it's actually releasing the stress chemicals from your body and maintaining it at a healthy balance.
So that we, in addition to everything else, so that we can sleep, so that we can have the energy to deal with the next day and whatever might come up in the next day.
Definitely, 100%.
So it's not only the self-care for enjoying whatever it is that we're doing, we're doing it. And additionally, we release the stress so that we can be ourselves. And part of getting the best for ourselves is that good sleep. So we recharge. Okay.
Yeah. Because like you said right at the beginning, sleep is so important and fundamental to our emotional and physical well-being.
Okay, so we're not going to talk so much about what self-care is, because that can mean different things for different people, but just the idea of self-care really impacts the sleep also.
Yes.
Okay, but let's talk about the subconscious thing, about how we can really address what's going on to us subconsciously so that we can get a good sleep, and that so our life is better altogether. But let's just talk about from the aspect of sleep. So let's talk conscious.
So wow, that's a massive topic, but obviously I'm going to keep it brief. So like I said earlier, your subconscious remembers everything that happens to you. So I'll give you a few examples, which just breaks it down and makes it much easier to understand it. But when I have people coming to me for sleep issues, a lot of times, like in the first couple of sessions, I don't even address the sleep, because it's not the sleep that is a problem. The sleep is a symptom. Something is going on inside their mind that is preventing them from sleep. Now, some examples that have come up, I've had people middle-aged coming, they're not sleeping well. Suddenly, either they're waking up middle of the night or they're not falling asleep. And what's come up during a session is that something that happened to them years ago. I remember one person said something that happened 30 years ago was still bothering them. and they felt so guilty about it. So once I was able to help them clear that guilt and kind of go back to that situation, reframe it for them, release the emotional attachments and negative emotions to it, without even talking about the sleep. The next day after session, she mentioned that her sleep improved. She slept amazing that night for the first time in years. So this is kind of examples what happens. And so many times it's what is going on subconsciously. Now, obviously, because it's your subconscious, so you're not always aware of it consciously. You know, some people might know, yes, it is because of the situation. A lot of times in midlife, you know, your children are older. As they get older, that doesn't mean we worry less for them. We're still worrying about our children. And
Right.
some ways, in a way, it's more of a worry because there's less you can do. You've kind of got to let them deal with the situation themselves. So a lot of mothers, you know, at this stage say that, you know, a lot of times it comes up that they're worried about their children, what their children is going through. They're seeing it. It's affecting them as well. So it's things like this which are running in the subconscious mind, and therefore often one of the first things that gets affected is the sleep, because when you go to sleep, you're switching off your conscious mind, your subconscious mind is open. So whatever is inside your subconscious mind often rises to the surface.
Okay, so we have this thought, these subconscious thoughts that are, what I'm trying to understand is that we shut up our conscious mind, meaning that we choose not to actively worry, but then our subconscious mind is coming up to worry anyway. Is that what's happening?
So more that when you're aware of a worry, then you're kind of, the conscious mind is doing that as well, right? When it's, what I was talking about was more like situations where people thought that they had already processed that situation. You know, somebody who felt guilty from what happened 30 years ago, consciously they weren't aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
But yet subconsciously it hadn't been dealt with. So there's the difference between what your subconscious is aware of and what your conscious mind is. Sometimes your subconscious mind will bring it to your conscious awareness.
Okay.
But I think that possibly when you have that, then in a way it's harder to relax because you're consciously aware of it as well. So you've got both your conscious and your subconscious, you know, worrying about the same situation. You first have to switch off your conscious mind, learn to relax, to release that worry, so that then you can deal with it subconsciously.
Yes, let's talk about both. But let's talk about how we can work with our conscious mind and how we can like shut down the ruminating thoughts, and then let's talk about tips for that.
Right. So thoughts affect emotions, which affect behavior. So when you want to change a behavior, if you try and change the behavior, you're not really going to get long-term changes unless you address what is causing it, which is your thoughts. When you wake up in the morning and you say, oh, today's a lousy day, you're going to feel lousy. If you wake up in the morning and you say, well, today's a fresh new day, you're going to feel more hopeful and optimistic. So literally what you tell yourself is going to affect how you feel. So when you're worried about something, you know, let's say you're going to bed and you think, oh no, another sleepless night, it's going to make you feel awful and you're going to end up not sleeping. So the first thing is to be aware of your thoughts. The next thing is to change it, to let go of negative thoughts. When a negative thought comes, no, it's just a thought. You know, sometimes people get so caught up in their thoughts and it feels like it's so real to them. That is because also your subconscious mind, your mind knows no difference between imagination and reality. When you imagine something, it becomes so real in your mind, it's as though it's already happened. So the good thing is you can use that to your benefit. So when you're, let's say, worried about something, you know, somebody is worried and consciously it's hard for them to switch off, literally talk to yourself, because we are talking to ourselves anyway. We have between 50 and 70,000 thoughts a day, which is between 2,000 and 3,000 thoughts an hour. Most of those thoughts are negative. Now, when we change those negative thoughts to positive thoughts, we will start to feel better. So let's say, you know, you're aware of a worry, there's something on your mind. The first thing also to do is write down, get a pen and paper, have it by your bedside. And before you go to bed, just write down everything that's on your mind. Just let your pen flow. Don't censor it, nothing. Just Let offload whatever is on your mind. That already, what you're telling your subconscious is that it's there. It's going to be dealt with, right? I'm dealing with it. And then your subconscious can let go of it because it knows that it's going to be dealt with. When you also allow yourself to just write it freely, it's coming more from your subconscious mind rather than your conscious mind. So it's uncensored and it's coming from right what's inside you. So that's one thing to do. Another thing is
we're talking about like our thoughts about the day or our thoughts about what the situation or the
anything.
list of things I have to do tomorrow or the list of things.
Anything. That is the whole thing, to not censor it and just get that pen and paper and write whatever is on your mind. So it could be, yes, things that you're thinking of what you have to do tomorrow. It could be things that have happened that day, or it could be things that happened previously. It could be, and it doesn't matter if it's nice things or not nice things. Either way, whatever it is, just offload it, write it down. It's very powerful and it makes a massive difference.
So just, is it the writing, is part of it the actual writing with our hand, or typing it up would be almost as good?
Yeah, you could type it as well.
The idea is to let it out of your mind.
Yeah, the idea is you're offloading it. You're literally taking it off your mind, putting it down on the paper. And when you do that, you notice that you feel so much lighter.
Okay.
So that's one thing. Another thing, for example, let's say people have reported that they're lying down in bed and they're feeling really stressed, really tense. Now, what happens is when you start to feel that way, we usually focus on it and that increases the tension. It's a the more you focus on it, the stronger it becomes. And by focusing on it, you're giving it more attention, you're feeding it. We all have a natural anxiety in us to protect us from real danger. And what happens is we have the tool to either diffuse that or to feed it. And naturally we feed it, because when we start to tense up, we focus on that, and that increases the heart rate because your subconscious thinks you're in danger. So first thing to do is the opposite. Regulate your breathing. Take a deep breath in, slowly breathe out, and do this like 4 or 5 times. Really bring down your heart rate. When you're bringing down your heart rate, you're releasing the chemicals from your body. Now, at the same time, tell yourself exactly what you would tell someone else in that situation. So, you can either tell yourself, calm, relax, you're okay, right now you're safe, things like that. Reassure yourself. And when you do this, you'll notice that your body actually releases that stress and you calm down. And instead of focusing on, I have to sleep, because when you're focusing on that, that increases the anxiety. Shift your focus. Start thinking of something nice. You can either think of somebody you care about, a grandchild, a child, somebody who's very close to you, and just think of them. You don't the whole idea is to do it subconsciously, so you're not overthinking it. And just bring in that image. Just by bringing in that thought, your body will respond already in a positive way and put you into a nice frame of mind, enabling you to be able to sleep. So you can either think of something nice, something that you enjoy. You can do some meditation, take yourself to a nice beach, the countryside. Now just listen to, make it very real by using auditory, visual, and kinesthetic. This is the way we process information. Some people are more visual, some people are more auditory, some people are more kinesthetic. But I find when you use all 3 processes, you're really stepping into the image, making it very real. So if you just imagine yourself, let's say, on the beach. So imagine feeling the warmth of the sun, that gentle breeze. Listen to the sound of the waves. Notice the white waves. So can you see you're doing it? You're listening, you're hearing, you're seeing, you're feeling like the soft sand beneath your toes. And it makes it very, very real, as though you're in that situation. And once you're in that situation, you're already in halfway through sleep.
So let's say, to me, the scenes of Jerusalem, like a certain hilltop is just, it's breathtaking. Okay, from Mount Scopus, they have just an amazing view. Okay.
Yes.
So I would just be trying to get myself into that with the breeze and the smells of Jerusalem, and just get myself into that mode.
Absolutely.
And then drift to sleep.
Yeah. Just the more you go into that, the more you're kind of switching off your conscious mind and you're getting yourself into that relaxed state in order for sleep to happen.
So I was just recently in Jerusalem, so I actually knew about this idea. So I actually, when I was there, I was taking in the smells so that I could really bring myself back there. And it's really cool. I mean, I'm actually able to sleep now better than I was, but I was doing it so that whenever I needed to pull back that scene for myself, I was in full sensory about the whole thing. And the idea of myself was that I could be able to get back to it fully. And it's kind of amazing that the actual experience of being there, so that I'm taking in the senses and taking in the breeze, and not just like seeing it and taking 2 pictures, but actually being there. That for itself, that experience itself was wonderful. It was a different way of being there rather than just kind of, got here, saw, took some pictures, from different angles and moved on, and a selfie, and then moved on.
Yeah, you were living in the moment. That's called living in the moment, which is unbelievable, and it's amazing because you're absorbed in it and you appreciate every bit of it. But the beauty of the subconscious is you can do this without even having to travel. Right from where you're sitting now, if you just, you close your eyes and you just take yourself to that place, make it very visual, make it very real. Imagine yourself exactly where you're standing, looking out, noticing the sky, the sun, the gentle breeze, the temperature. Or make it like, the more details you add in, the more real it becomes. And like I said, your subconscious mind knows no difference between imagination and reality. So when you're putting yourself into this state, subconsciously, you are actually living in that moment.
But then someone suggested that you actually look at photos before you go to sleep of whatever it is that you want to be imagining. And I'm wondering if that's really true. Like,
you could do, but I say it's not necessary. Your mind is phenomenal. We don't realize what an incredible brain we have. The mind it doesn't even need to see a picture in order to remember it. Yes, photos make it very real. And as soon as you see a picture, it gets embedded in your subconscious mind. Though, if you don't have a picture, you can literally just talk yourself into seeing that image again, because our mind is constantly processing images. Like, there's images running through our mind the whole time. So what we're doing is literally just going to that resource and picking out one of those memories. So if you don't have a picture, you can just talk yourself into it, tell yourself, right, let's go to this place now.
Should we have like the same place that we always go to, or is it better to switch it up, or it doesn't matter?
No difference. Whatever's your personal preference.
For that night.
Yeah, just have fun with it. The whole idea is to be more relaxed about it. It's not a rigid thing. If you're rigid, then it's hard to actually get to sleep. So it's about having that flexibility and just going with the flow. If one night you want to go to the beautiful hills of Jerusalem, go there. Another night you might want to go to the beach, go there. Another night you might want to go to the countryside. Do whatever works for you.
Okay, so we talked about this visualization idea of just kind of like getting ourselves into a more peaceful place in our mind even.
Yeah.
Okay. So offloading, meditating, or getting ourselves into this other space. What else can we do?
Right. So there's a few practical tips that also are important, because it's not just the subconscious, there's also practical things that you have to do as well. Because I know some people like to wait until they're really tired and then they go to sleep. That actually isn't always the best thing. Sometimes when we're overtired, it's much harder to fall asleep, because the mind needs time to relax and get ready for bed. So go to bed before you get too tired. And this, you should be aware already what is your time of when is the time when you're okay, and then after that you suddenly get too tired. If you're not sure of it, if you're struggling to fall asleep, then the next night try to go to bed, bring it down by 20 minutes and keep adjusting the time till you get to the right time. Again, you don't have to be rigid about sticking to that time. Let's say if 11 p.m. is your time where is the ideal time for you to get into bed. You need to give yourself also some time to unwind, either before bed or in bed. So that should be half an hour before you go to bed. So let's say that 11 o'clock is the optimum time for you to have your lights off and go to sleep. by 10:30, you should be already unwinding, whether you want to read a book, whether you want to listen to music, or just, clearing up for the day, like finishing off, so that in that half an hour, you're already relaxing your mind, getting yourself ready for bed. So make sure you kind of adjust your sleeping time, get the right time that works for you. So give yourself half an hour before bedtime to unwind, get the right time. Don't wait until you're too tired, get to bed before you're tired. Avoid any drinks with caffeine at least 6 hours before, because we all know that caffeine, keeps us awake. Another thing is sugar, refined sugar also. Refined sugar literally acts like cocaine. It sends chemicals to the brain, it releases dopamine, and it actually sends, a burst of energy. But what happens after that is that it dips right down. So again, with sugar, like caffeine, cut it down at least 6 hours before you go to bed. I mean, sugar anyway, cut down, that's another issue altogether, because there's so many illnesses and things that come out as a result of sugar. And another thing is lights. Like we have our natural circadian rhythm, which releases melatonin at night. When it gets dark, the body starts to release melatonin to help us to get to sleep. So if you put on lights in the room, or people have their phone, let's say if the screen is on, things like that, that can all affect your regular circadian rhythm. So sleep in a dark room. And yeah, so those are kind of like practical tips to do. Once you've done that, then you go on to the writing down, the offloading, and the visualization, things like that.
What are your thoughts of things like lavender or other scents as far as relaxing aromatherapy?
So I'm like, I always say, always go for natural first. So if it's something natural, if it helps you, it helps you. Though I have seen that people manage without it completely, because through these tips, as well as, if somebody's been through a trauma, that trauma doesn't necessarily have to be major trauma, like things have been through abuse or accidents and things like that, that yes, for sure will affect a person. And that's where individual sessions come in to help the person release the emotions attached to it. So if there's nothing like that going on, and everything else is okay, then just using these tips will help you. Because lavender, what does lavender and all these things do? It's doing exactly the same thing of what your meditation and visualization will do. It's relaxing your breathing, relaxing your mind.
Okay. So I guess really try first for the things that don't cost anything. You don't have to go to the store for, like just
Exactly.
And then you can get a sample size of lavender and see what that does for you before you actually invest in a whole lavender-like thing.
Yeah, though I mean, I have seen with people, obviously, like I said, people come, we clear the emotional triggers, but what after that, just using these tips, they're already able to fall asleep. Yeah, another thing is with because of the hormonal changes during midlife, and hot sweats, hot flushes. So make sure that your room is the right temperature. If it's too hot, you're not going to be able to sleep. Too cold, you're also not going to be able to sleep. A good idea might be to have, let's say, just a very thin sheet next to you, so that if you do get hot in the middle of the night, you can switch over to covering with that instead of having your duvet. Right. Again, that is something practical that one can do.
Of course, the cotton sheets rather than anything else.
Yes. Oh, yes. You don't want anything that is going to make you even hotter.
Right. And okay, so let's talk a little bit about releasing those emotions from subconscious. What is something that someone can try to do on their own before for working with somebody, or is it not possible?
Not really. No, I wouldn't recommend that, because I mean, like I do give my clients recordings to listen to. I have on my website also recordings to listen to, but those are ones more for once we've done the work of releasing the emotions. The reason is because let's say when I'm working with somebody and we're releasing whatever it is, all the negative energy inside them, it could come up, things can come up, like the subconscious will possibly bring up traumatic events. Now, in order to release it effectively, they need that guidance to do that. If they just did it on their own, they would bring up these memories and then have no idea how to clear it. So that could be in itself traumatic for them because they're reliving the situation. The way that I help them is by guiding them in that moment, in that session, to clearing the negative emotions attached to the event, looking at what they've learned from that situation, taking the learning, releasing the emotions, and thereby they can move forward into the present. This is not something that one can do by themselves unless they're trained in it.
I could see that, because all of a sudden bringing up all these emotions, these thoughts, these memories, it could be, and then holding it without knowing what to do with it could be sometimes even worse than just.
Exactly.
So that makes sense.
So I definitely, like, when people ask me, can I have a recording just to, release all the emotions? I say, no, I would not take that responsibility for them because I've seen in sessions what it does to people. Like, we can have a session where literally they're like crying or, a lot of negative energy is coming up, but within that same session, I already help them to guide them out of it. So by the end of the session, they're feeling amazing. They're feeling wonderful again, because I will check to see their responses, how they feel about that. Now, if they did it on their own, like we say, they wouldn't be able to do that. And it makes it worse.
I could see that. I could see that. Like just totally bringing it up and now what? Like
Exactly.
I wasn't prepared to deal with something so big. And for some people, they don't know what their subconscious is going to bring out.
Yeah.
And it could be too big to deal with. For some people, it's just a small thing and maybe they could deal with it, but you don't know. And I think that's the reason why you don't do this on your own. So let's talk a little bit about what happens in a session when someone comes to you to work with this. They come to you for sleep, and then we discover that it's probably not only a practical answer, it's probably something subconscious. So what happens in a session? I'm so intrigued.
Yes, so it's fascinating. I can only explain a little bit, but it's always like people say, until you actually experience it, it's not the same. Huh? But what it is basically getting into that relaxed state. It's a bit, it's that stage just before we fall asleep, when your conscious mind is switched off, and we're working with your subconscious mind. So once you're in this relaxed state, then I would help you clear any unpleasant memory, unpleasant experience. I use a lot of what is called content-free hypnosis. Content-free hypnosis means that we don't need to go into all the specifics. It's doing it much more broadly. Like, I guide you into clearing any unpleasant memory, any unpleasant experience, anything at all that's caused you to feel X, Y, Z, however you're feeling. A lot of times I don't even know what the person is clearing. A lot of times they themselves don't know, but their subconscious mind knows it, because I am kind of just facilitating getting your subconscious mind to do what it needs to do. So, and sometimes people are aware, and it will bring up unpleasant memories, unpleasant experiences. And I always say, go along with your subconscious mind. Whatever it brings up, if it brings something up, even if it's something that was years ago and you think, I totally forgot about that, obviously your subconscious mind hasn't forgotten. So then we work with clearing that. Again, there's two types. Some people like to actually talk about what happened, even while they're in a trance. And some people like to just be able to clear it without talking about it. Both ways are fine. I go with what works for you. My aim always is, like I say, we cannot change the past. We can learn from it. Every experience is there to teach you something, to help you become a better person. Once you've taken that learning, we help to kind of make that younger you go back to the time when whatever age you were, and help you to feel better in that situation. It's also bringing all the knowledge, all the skills that you've gained over the years to that younger you, and giving the younger you the resources to be able to handle that situation in a better way. Once we've done that, then the second part of it is always putting in the confidence, building your sense of self. Because a lot of times when people have been through unpleasant experiences, it strips them of their self-worth, their dignity, their confidence. So it's very important to bring that back in. And another very powerful, important thing often is also inner child healing, because our childhood has such an impact on who we are. it's unbelievable how many times in sessions people come up with things that happened to them as a child. Unfortunately, I've come across a lot of people who've been brought up very critical, very harsh, and so they themselves are constantly criticizing themselves, always beating themselves up, things like that, and it affects them on a day-to-day basis. So there's the combination of clearing as well as giving the tips to improve yourself so that you see your own worth, your own value, your self-worth, and it's putting in that confidence again. Because when a person is feeling emotionally safe and healthy, you're at your best. When you're threatened, that's when we start to come up with behaviors that are not really helpful for us. So that is kind of in a nutshell, but obviously there's so much more to it.
So people come to you because of sleep, but really it's so much more. And then I'm wondering if people could come to you without having a sleep issue, because some people could sleep regardless,
Yeah,
and still have but this can be showing up in other ways in their lives.
absolutely. I mean, the reason why I niched into sleep is because I noticed that I'd say 95% of clients were having sleep problems, but there are people who come just for phobias and they're able to sleep. I do fears, phobias, anxiety, stress, trauma, OCD, weight loss as well, smoking. I found even sometimes with weight loss people, that's also a fascinating subject. People come for weight loss, and it's come up that a lot of times it's the way they were treated as a little child. So again, it's doing all the work in that area, clearing the trauma, changing the way that they see themselves. And only then we can start to work on their relationship with food. There were a lot of times by doing this work itself, then the end result, what they want, starts to happen along the way without specifically going into that.
Fascinating. So are you seeing that people, when they come to you in midlife, besides that some people really, it's the hot flashes that are really just kind of, or the night sweats that are really just physically disrupting their sleep, are you finding that certain people have certain, is there like a pattern of what people are coming to, what kind of issues they're coming with besides the physical issues? Like with the subconscious is bringing up, is there like a pattern, or is it just midlife is just one of the times of life that people are having subconscious, like the subconscious is coming up just at midlife or at any time in life? I'm just curious.
Yes, it's an interesting question, and it's kind of there's a few things. Sometimes it is because as children get older, you start to see yourself more in them, and it's things that have been brushed aside in a person. Suddenly they realize they need to deal with it, so that's what brings them to come. Other times it's they've never, as a mother, you just keep always putting your child first. So they've kind of neglected themselves, and it's come to a stage where they realize they have to take care of themselves. Like there's things that have been niggling them, bothering them, and they always kind of brushed it aside. A lot of times, like parents will send their children first for help, but really it's the parent that needs the help. And, instead of spending on themselves, they'll rather send the child. But if they would have first help themselves, their children wouldn't need the help.
Okay.
So it's a combination of things, but I think midlife is kind of often a time where we've got more maturity, we start to look at things differently, we've got much more awareness as well, and it's a time when you realize, okay, it's time to be your best self and to look after yourself, to take care of yourself.
What I'm also finding when people come to me with midlife is that I think that this happens to be that this time of their life is the first time that that the society is taking care of ourselves. So this is when they're showing up, because 20 years ago, people just weren't taking care of themselves in this kind of way of self-awareness and self-care. So it's just people, this is their first time. It's becoming just more available and more awareness.
That is true though.
All the old stuff is now showing up. But also on the other hand, midlife is a time of change, and we're reevaluating ourselves on how we got to where we are and what we want to do with the next part of our lives. So there is that also, that is between those two things. I'm finding a lot of people in midlife are really looking to improve their lives in all aspects, whether they're coming in from the angle of sleep as being the issue, or wanting to lose weight is their issue. But whatever it is, there's so many ways to come into really improving our own lives. And that's why I find midlife so fascinating. It's like
Yeah.
there's so many angles. It's like ourselves is saying, take care of me. And so whatever way our body is telling us, take care of me. So people will come in from all different angles, but it's take care of me already.
100%.
That's
Yeah.
what I'm seeing.
For sure. And I think also, if we look to, our 20s or 30s, we're kind of just building ourselves, like, so you're so focused on kind of whatever it is that you're doing, whether you're bringing up a family or starting your career, you're building. When you start to be in your 40s, 50s plus, then you've done that already, you're further along the journey, and then you can take stock and look back and think, oh, well, and like you say, it's, me time now. Take care of yourself.
We have so many years left, and we want them to be productive, happy years, and not only holding on to all the stuff that we had that we didn't take care of, whether it was because of society or whether it was because we're so busy, or whether because, like you said, the earlier years are building up years, and they're a little bit more ego driven, not in a bad way, but like sort of like building me and building my life. And now it's coming back to and who am I in my life? Who's the me? Yeah. And so I think that midlife is a wonderful time to really work on all these other things, so that our next half of our life can be wonderful, and we can be so giving when we're in a better place from ourselves. So I love this like subconscious, like
100%. And also, yeah, and also in a way, like you kind of have to have lived a bit in order to discover yourself.
Right.
So that's why when you get to midlife, it is the perfect time to look at who you are, because you've got that maturity, you've got that life experience as well, which in your 20s, even if you have that awareness, it's on a much smaller scale than as you go through life later on.
Yeah, and that's why we're doing all these talks, because we have there's so many aspects of life by the time you get to midlife, the things that cannot change, and the things that we still can change, and there's so much going on, so we really have to unpack it. So this has been a really fascinating conversation about sleep, subconscious. How can people reach you, and what's your website?
So my website is, I don't know if you've got time for one short story, which is fascinating. It's actually on my website is www.transwork.co.uk. Through there, they can contact me. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Yocheved Levin. So I have a mindset program, which kind of puts all the basics of how to have a positive attitude, how to change, like giving skills and techniques which you yourself can do, if you're kind of generally healthy, but just want to be able to move yourself forward into a more positive mindset. Now, it starts off with a story one client which has given me permission to share her story, because she herself was so blown away with it and wants other people to benefit as well. So she came to me, this was several years ago, it was quite early on when I started, and she just wanted, at the time when she came, she was like constantly getting ill, being in hospital. She'd broken several of her limbs. There was always things going wrong with her. People can put it down to bad luck, but I very much believe the energy that's inside us is what we attract. And then we started working together. There was a lot that was going on in her life. A lot from her past came up. We dug up a lot and helped her to clear it. It was that, as well as she was very, very critical of herself. So giving her the skills of looking at herself, seeing herself for who she is, helping her to see her self-worth and get to feel that she's worthy, that she's a human being. So what happened was, her condition was she had literally her spine was collapsing. The bones were disintegrating. Yeah, she was in a very bad way. She was told she needs a 12-hour operation, which being under anesthetic for so long could lead to blindness. If she didn't have the operation, her spine could collapse and it could lead to paralysis. What a choice to be faced with. Yeah. And then, so we worked for several months together, and then she phoned me up once and she says, Yocheved, I have to see you. So she came in. She told me that she'd been to the hospital, because obviously pre-op, they have to do all the tests and everything. They took another x-ray of her spine. They showed her both x-rays, that one and from a few months ago. A few months ago, there was a big cyst at the base of her spine that was completely gone.
Wow.
Not only that, her bones had started growing back. which that is phenomenal. They'd never seen anything like that. And I said to her, what do you think it was? Because I wanted to hear from her what it was. And she said, definitely the work. She was so critical of herself. It was a combination of the criticism and the trauma. The trauma had, like, she'd been through abuse. So it had affected her massively. And by clearing all that, and now it's several years later, Baruch Hashem, thank God she has not been in the hospital once since then.
Wow.
She is a different person. So that, I just, and I have so many stories similar to this that I just see how physical illness is often a result of trauma, abuse, and the way that we speak to ourselves.
Yes, I say that. I can see that.
Yeah, I see it again and again and again.
It's fascinating, but I think that, like you say, people need support. I mean, sometimes you can talk to yourself up to a degree, but that's up to a degree, especially depending what you have to unpack.
Yes.
So we can talk to ourselves and reframe situations, but sometimes it really needs the support of someone who knows how to really help you work with it.
Definitely. There's no way that you can do it all to such a deep level by yourself. Because when you're doing it by yourself, you're just using your own perspective, but you've got to get it unwrapped from another perspective. As one of my trainers said once, everybody at the age of 16 should have hypnosis, clear everything from the past, and then start fresh. And I found that is, there's really something to it, because I say we're all an impact of our childhood. Because anyone who says, no, my childhood didn't affect me, they're just denying it. For those who are blessed with a happy, healthy childhood, that's wonderful. Though I think that's the minority. A lot of people have been brought up very harsh, very self-critical, and it keeps going in.
I would say, I mean, yes, now the parenting, there's so much that the parents are learning, so hopefully they're doing a better job. But the parenting that midlifers got, like after the war, and then
yes,
it was a different time. And there's stuff that we all can work through.
100%.
And even though we're doing well, we can do even better.
Hypnotherapy is one way. I'm not saying it's the only way. I've seen incredible results with people. It's, I find working with the subconscious is fascinating. There's EFT, there's so many different types. So if somebody tries one way and it doesn't work for them, it doesn't mean you should give up. Try something else till you find the right approach for you. But one way of knowing what is right for you, that you should always see progress. If you're seeing progress, it's working for you.
All right. So thank you so much, Yocheved. Just tell us again, the best way to reach you is through the website, and then you'll have links there.
Yeah, to my email as well. It's yg@trancework.co.uk. TRANCE, trance, as in going into a trance.
And in American English, it's trance.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
I've got my London accent.
All right. So thank you so much.
Thank you,
of course, talking to you again. Thank you, Yocheved.
Thank you, and keep up your amazing work. Thank you so much. Lovely seeing you. Take care. Bye.
Thank you for joining me in another fascinating conversation about midlife. If you'd like to reach me, Devora Krasnianski, to talk about your midlife or anything else, you can reach me at jewishmidlife@gmail.com. You can also find us on our website, jewishmidlife.com, and follow us on Jewish Midlife on Instagram or Facebook, and join our conversations in our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Jewish Women Talk About Midlife. And share what we're doing with your friends and others in the midlife phase.